Welcome to In Touch with Northern Michigan. I'm State Senator Michelle Mcmanus, and thank you for tuning in this month. This month I have a very special guest, Colleen from the Michigan Council on Citizen Diplomacy, and she's the co-chair, and I want to welcome her to the program.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for taking the time to discuss some really very interesting topics with us today. And I think I just would like to start off for the audience to understand really, what this group is and a little bit of history.
Sure. The Michigan Council on Citizen Diplomacy, we've been in existence for a number of years. We're quasi-community, quasi-Michigan State University. But we are a total volunteer organization. We work with a group in Washington, the National Council for International Visitors, and what we do is we set up programming for international visitors that come to Washington and then on to the rest of the United States through the U.S. State Department's International Visitor Leadership Program.
Okay. So how many of these groups come every year? I mean, it sounds very complicated. I mean,
well,
it sounds like a lot of places.
There are a lot of pieces in play here. First of all, when a group is selected, let's start with that. Mm-hmm. What would happen is, say, for instance, the group that was recently in Michigan that you were kind enough to host at the Capitol. They came from 10 different countries. Now, they were selected by staff from the U.S. Embassy in each of those countries. Okay. They then forward their names to the State Department. The State Department selects 10, maybe 15 people for a particular program, and then they go to Washington for a week, and then they're sent out to 5 different locations in the United States, sometimes 4, sometimes 6, but usually around 5. And each of us focus on a different topic. And so it's a lot of things. We get people to volunteer to host them in their homes. We get businesses to have them in and show how they do a particular procedure, how they do a particular manufacturing, maybe visit a facility or something, go to a university or go to the state capitol as we did with you.
Now, the recent group that came to the Michigan Capitol, maybe you can talk a little bit about them because I think that's a great example. Yeah. So the ladies that came, because these were women.
They were all women.
From what countries? I mean,
they were from all over the Middle East and North Africa. We had Morocco, Oman, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, the West Bank, Jordan. A number of countries were involved. And then we had 4 interpreters also from the State Department so that they could take turns in meetings interpreting simultaneously for these women.
These women didn't know each other when they were put in a group.
They did not know each other at all. But by the time they got to Michigan, as you saw, they were like kindred spirits. Women going around the U.S., really learning about Americans and what we do, and it's not so different from them, They're married, they have children, they have jobs. Same here. It was a very interesting group.
Now, do they have to apply to be obviously apply under their government to be selected, or how does that work?
It's a different thing in each situation. In some countries, they have to go through their government. Generally, the State Department picks out people, or excuse me, the embassies, they pick out people based on work they do. For example, the U.S. Embassy in Morocco, say they are looking for a trade person. So they're working with the Moroccan government on trade. They'll see a person that really stands out in their mind, and they'll say, that person, it would be good for them to know more about the United States, more about Americans, because we think that in the future they're going to be a leader in Morocco.
So they're really looking for future leaders.
They're looking for future leaders. And in the group we had, it was 12 women, all of whom were considered future leaders in their country.
Very interesting. You always have women, or
no? We have men, women, from all over. We've had in the last year, we've had visitors from the Nepalese Supreme Court. We've had epidemiologists from Uzbekistan. We've had people from Indonesia, from the agricultural area, university people from Mali. We've had everyone you can imagine. We usually do each year something for the British Parliament as well, here in Michigan, working with the Senate and the House.
Okay. Now, how have you gotten involved in this? How long? How long you been?
Oh, I've been doing this for about 6 years. And I first started because someone called and said, can you get a meeting with a senator for us? We've got 8 people coming in from the British Parliament, and they'd like to see Michigan government. And of course, I called some people, and they said, sure, come on down.
Yeah.
It was great to have the interaction between our legislators and the parliamentarians from the UK. But I've long had an interest ever since, I'm from Fremont on the west side of the state, home of Gerber baby food, or used to be. And so we had international people in, and I was an exchange student in high school, and I've always been interested in the international area. And this really was a perfect fit, trying to, really try to promote citizenship and diplomacy, what we say, one handshake at a time.
Sure. Now, does the U.S. do the same thing? Are there organizations like what you do here in the United States, in those other countries, trying to promote, Americans going and seeing how these other countries interact?
I don't believe so. Okay. Not organized efforts. I mean, some countries there certainly are, and we've seen, but they usually focus then on people in Washington going over, not necessarily people from, say, here in the Midwest. Right. And I've been really pushing the folks in Washington, because they used to send them to, we have a group coming in, let's send them to New York and San Francisco and Miami and Los Angeles. And they said, hey, what about us in the Midwest?
Sure.
I mean, we like to say we're the real Americans, this is the place where you can come and have dinner with a family, you can go out fishing with them, go for a walk, meet their kids. It's a wonderful place here.
So the women that came, where did they stay when they came? Did they stay in homes or
no,
hotels?
they stayed at a hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, and it varies by group. Sometimes we have homestays, sometimes they stay in a hotel, but generally it's in a hotel. And that's because some of them need interpreters, and so we don't have a one-on-one interpreter experience, so they stay in a hotel.
And how many days were they here in Michigan?
They were in Michigan. They arrived on, they were here for 4 nights.
4 nights, and of those 3 days, they came once to the Capitol and had an opportunity with the Michigan legislature. What else did they do while they were here?
Other things they did while they were here, we had a pizza and politics night, and we do things. I'm quick to make sure that we have things on both sides of the aisle. We have Democrats involved and Republicans involved, and that night it happened to be that the Republican State Committee was meeting in Lansing. And so they went and were invited in, graciously I might add, to participate in a pizza and politics night. And they loved it. They loved being able to go out and speak with county and district chairs, women of leadership in the Republican Party, and talking back and forth with them. They also spent time on Michigan State's campus. The Muslim Study Center hosted a reception for them. They went through the MSU Museum. Some of them attended Friday prayer at the Islamic Center.
Okay.
And that was an interesting thing. Of these 12 women, 4 were Christian and 8 were Muslim. Okay. And it was sort of interesting there, too, to see the interplay.
Yeah, I bet. So then they spent their time here in Michigan. Did they go someplace else in the United States, too, or is it just Michigan?
They came from New York.
Okay.
They did do the obligatory New York stop. And then they went to Portland, Maine. And then they came here. They were going to Austin next, then San Francisco, and then they would go back to New York and fly home from there.
So they're here in the United States for, gosh, that sounds like a long time.
They're here for 3 weeks, generally.
That's a long time. Most groups are like that.
Yep. Most groups are 3 weeks.
And they learn a lot about Americana.
They did.
And they get a lot of interaction and contacts.
Lots of interaction. Here, one of the things, especially with the women's group, but men too, they love to go shopping because of the variety and the quality of products available here in the U.S. And so we spent part of Saturday at Birch Run, going shopping at the outlet mall, and then we went to Bronner's Christmas Center, and they loved the Bronner's store.